Hey, it's Rod Yates. Welcome to another episode of Humans of Music, a Jaxsta podcast. Each episode I talk to a music creator or industry professional about their life and career, the ups and downs of their journey and the lessons they've learned. And my special guest today is New Zealand indie pop superstar Stella Rose Bennett, also known as BENEE. BENEE recently released her latest EP, Lychee. It's a follow-up to her 2020 debut album, Hey UX, which exploded around the world on the back of the hit single Super Lonely. At this point, Super Lonely has been streamed more than 4 billion times, but BENEE's had to watch it all unfold from Auckland due to COVID restrictions. That finally changed late last year though, when she travelled to the US to work with songwriters and producers like Greg Kurstin and Rostam. Alongside collaborations with her longtime producer Josh Fountain, her work with Greg and Rostam features on her new EP. And we started the interview by talking about the experience of working with these new collaborators. And I've seen you refer to that time in LA as a whirlwind culture shock. Why was it like that?
Well, I think because I've been stuck in New Zealand for so long, I think it was just exactly that. It was complete, it was kind of the sensory overload where I was like in this place that I had only really visited properly like 2 times before, and I was around so many people and this completely different environment and COVID times, obviously. It was just very different to what I had been kind of comfortable with for quite a while. So, but I found like it was super like inspiring at the same time. So I kind of got there and I was just like, oh my goodness. It was also like this breath of fresh air because it was like, I feel like I can write about so much stuff. Whereas when I was here before I went away, it was kind of, a little bit repetitive with what I was making, and I was kind of like, feeling somewhat like uninspired, which I feel like a lot of my creative friends have also kind of found being in lockdowns and not being able to kind of go anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
So was it the 4 songs that you did in LA, were they all written over there as well, or did you take them over?
No, I started fresh when I was over there, actually.
Nice.
Yeah. So it was nice to kind of just have a blank canvas. I mean, I definitely took a lot of notes there with me because I was like, oh my goodness, I'm going on a writing trip, and what if I run out of ideas, which has happened before, and I was like, oh my goodness. But so I had like starting points, or like one word.
Okay.
Sort of stuff.
Yeah. And you obviously have a very comfortable working relationship with Josh, having worked together for so long.
Yeah.
Stepping into rooms with people such as Greg and Rostam, what was that experience like in terms of trying to feel comfortable straight away?
It's always like a little bit like scary at the start because you're like, especially if you've never met someone before, it's like you're in a room with a stranger and you're going to write something like kind of personal. So it's always like, it's always like a weird, just the idea of that. I'm always like, I don't even know how we do it because it's such a like weird situation to begin with. But I feel like, these producers are used to working with hundreds of different artists, and I think what they do really well at is making the artist feel comfortable. And I mean that's why they're so good at what they do. Is a huge part of that is like building this relationship with the artist and just making it flow. So I think luckily with both Rostam and like someone like Greg, I found it like really chill, surprisingly.
Cool.
And it was nice to just be able to kind of bounce ideas off each other. And I feel like it was definitely a different experience this most recent writing trip compared to like the first time I went over to LA to make music with people, because I feel like I'm a lot more confident now. And I also know that like, you just gotta, if you don't like something that they're doing or whatever, you just gotta say it. Because otherwise it's a waste of everyone's time. So I feel like, I've definitely become a lot more, sure of what I'm about and what I'm wanting to get out of a session.
Yeah. So. When did that happen? When did you get to that place?
I think in the last few years, honestly. I think the first trip that I did was like 2019 maybe. And that was when I was like, I was working with Josh happily and I was making stuff that I really wanted to be making, but I hadn't really worked with other people before. So I was like very new to everything. But I think now kind of having that trip and then doing a lot more collaborations like online because of COVID, I think then being able to go out, and be a little more confident and a little more, experienced, sort of, not really. I think it just made it all a lot easier,
Sure.
Which is nice.
The closing track, Make You Sick. The EP itself is as varied as we've come to expect from you, but Make You Sick almost takes things to another level. It's almost 7 minutes long, and it's this kaleidoscope of sounds and colors and moods. How did that come together?
Yeah, well, that was a song that I made with Josh, and it was actually originally meant to be for a fashion show. This brand basically approached us and asked if we would be able to make a 13-minute song or something crazy for this runway. And obviously because of COVID, it got postponed, and they were like, can we hold on to it for a year? Originally, I was going to put it in the album. And so I was like, actually, I don't want them to hold on to it. I want to release it at some point. And we actually released it in the CD version of Hey UX. So it was like a bonus track that only people who got the CD got. But yeah, I mean, in the session, I was just like, okay, got to make this long. We got to make it kind of fun. And I'm channeling badass vibes walking down a runway. And I really I don't even think I was kind of writing anything. I wasn't writing about anything in particular. It was just imagining that I was walking down a runway. So I was just freestyling for pretty much all of it, and just asking him to put on a bunch of trippy effects on my voice. And I really wanted it to just be kind of go to a bunch of different places, and it to kind of sound like a whole lot of different songs in one listening, sort of. It's kind of like a little journey, you're if you're strutting on the street, it kind of has a bunch of different vibes in there. But yeah, I mean, I had a lot of fun making it.
Yeah, inspiration comes from many places.
Exactly.
There's another song in the EP, Marry Myself, which you've said is the idea behind that song is being strong enough to enjoy being yourself. Have you always felt that way?
No, I don't actually think so. No, and I think writing this song, I did it with Greg Kirsten, and I think it's more about feeling okay by yourself, and I was joking about marrying myself, right. And hopefully one day I'll marry someone else, but I don't know. I think it's kind of just that independent thing that I'm feeling at the moment, where I'm actually quite happy alone, and learning to kind of love your own company and stuff, I think has been something that a lot of people have had to kind of come to terms with in the last couple of years, being in lockdowns and whatever, and also just going through breakups and feeling you can't do it without them and all of that. I feel like I'm in a very different place now than I was 2 years ago, where I was like, oh my God, I'm so sad. So yeah, I think it's just a new feeling for me, which stoked about.
Yeah. Was it that enforced isolation of COVID that I guess gave you no option other than to live with yourself?
Yeah, I think so. And it's given people a lot of time to work on themselves as well. So I think it's been a reflecting period. But yeah, I mean, I was kind of just playing around with creative writing when I was also in LA. So with Marry Myself, it was a made up story. I didn't actually sit under a pear tree and a coyote was staring at me, but I was I can write about it. Same with Beach Boy. That was completely a made up kind of fantasy thing, because you're in this new environment, and why not write up a crazy story? And apparently someone in Australia this woman actually has married herself. So I'm
wow.
Yeah, so that's kind of fun. And I'm go you, girl. Respect.
That idea of creative writing and writing short stories, and I guess creating these worlds, is that something that you've done for a long time? Did you grow up doing that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think creative writing was always my favorite part of English, and my favorite thing to do was just make up stories. And I'm dyslexic, so I at school when I was doing essays, they weren't always the best, but when we got to make up this piece about something that comes out of our mind that you don't have to write about, you can write about whatever you want. I always found that was so freeing, and it didn't matter if you were grammatically not correct or whatever, because you could just have this really cool idea. And I think that then moving into songwriting, coming out of high school, I was this is the job for me, because it doesn't have to make sense. It just have to sound good and I want my lyrics to be cool and I want them to be creative and I want to be able to write whatever I want to write about and make it sound good. So it's like, dream job. Here we go. Yeah.
You've spoken about the songs on the EP being inspired by the thoughts that are always jangling around your brain, and that you find it hard to switch off. And you've sung about that previously as well. How does that manifest? Like when you can't switch your brain off, have you developed techniques to try and help with that, or have you just learned to harness that?
I think I've learned to harness it somewhat. I think I've recently been prescribed fluoxetine for my OCD, which was something that I didn't even know that I had, but it explained a lot about why some of my thoughts, when I was writing Night Garden, which was about every night I would think that someone was going to kidnap me when I was in my sleep, and I'd create this crazy story, or my song Monster, I had this crazy cycling thought that my room was going to catch on fire and I was going to die. So, I think it's all that kind of stuff. It just got to levels where I was like, oh my goodness, there's something very wrong with me right now. Well, not wrong with me, but just something that I don't know about that I need to kind of help. And yeah, I think then going on meds and also going to a psychologist, I think has helped me to kind of calm myself down. And now I feel I don't know, I was a little bit scared to go on meds because I was it's going to make me not as creative. Is it going to make me whatever, tired? Because that apparently can happen. But no, I feel more recently I've just been writing about stuff that, makes me happy and I feel even more creative because I'm I don't have to write so many sad songs. And I think that's that's definitely what happened before I went to LA. And I felt bad for Josh because I was just oh, God, I'm so sorry. These are all so boring and sad. But yeah, it's definitely something that I feel I kind of have to just sometimes practice mindfulness. I'm not very good at it, but that's something that I've talked about a lot with my psychologist. And I think, it's kind of just taking a breath and trying to slow it all down and kind of, I don't know. I'm still navigating my way through it all, but yeah.
Well, you have that line in the song, Doesn't Matter, which I believe is about your OCD. And one of the lines is, although my fears are real, the things I fear are not. And I think that's an incredible perspective to have. And I was wondering if was that the result of seeing a psychologist? Was that something that had come out of those discussions?
Yes, it sort of. I think I wrote the song before I even went and saw my psychologist. Maybe it was at the start of seeing my psychologist. I don't know. But yeah, I think that's definitely talking to a psychologist and realizing that, what I'm thinking, it's it's valid that I had these fears and whatever, but I also now realize that what does she always say? Sorry, I'm going a little bit off track, but she always says to me when I'm oh my goodness, okay, there's a bag unattended at an airport, and I always I freak out if I ever see anything like that because my mind races. But she's these things could happen, but they probably won't. I think that that's something that I've definitely tried to think about a lot more because I'm I'm just hyper sensitive to just thinking that the worst thing in the world is going to happen. And you can fear these things, but they might not actually happen. I don't know. It's a weird, yeah, that's kind of what the line was about anyways. Yeah. You just got to slow yourself down sometimes.
Right.
Get a little bit.
Right, yeah.
Get a little bit crazy. Yeah.
What was the, and last question about this song, but getting that diagnosis, being diagnosed with OCD, how did that help you? You said earlier that it helped you make sense of some of your thought patterns. Was it was it a relief to get that diagnosis?
Yeah, I think definitely, because I was for quite a long time just not getting much sleep and just kind of wondering what on earth is wrong with me. I felt, I thought I was mildly depressed, and I was I am an anxious person, but this is, trying to relate to my friends and them kind of being dude, chill out or whatever. I'm okay, this isn't helping. And I'm in a very, I feel very isolated and very much this is not making any sense. And then I think one of my mates was you might have OCD. And I kind of didn't really think about it. And then I kind of, I don't know, I started doing my routines and whatever. And then I looked up symptoms or whatever. And I was just like, oh shoot, I'm gonna go and do my part, and I'm gonna go and see what this guy says, the psychiatrist. And yeah, it was for sure a relief, because I was just like, okay, this makes me feel somewhat normal.
Yeah.
Because he was also like, this is super common, and that's something I didn't know. And yeah, also just like this whole idea of OCD that I had was just like, I don't know, I feel like it's so different in movies and whatever to what it's actually like, for people who are actually struggling with it. And I think, I read this article that was like, one of the most misunderstood mental disorders in the world is OCD. So it's like, I've learned a lot about myself and about like just it in general, I think.
And all these themes that we've been talking about, the EP's title, Lychee, does that relate in any way to what we've been discussing?
No. Lychee, I have a real problem with like figuring out names for bodies of work. Like I don't know, there's something about it that I don't like having to choose one word. So I just decided that I would go with my favorite fruit, because, it means something to me.
Yeah.
Because I like it. But yeah, no, not relevant at all whatsoever to anything in the,
Right. And you've got all the dates for your world tour coming up. You have a very busy few months ahead of you. And I know you've done some sort of sporadic shows over the last 12 to 18 months. Some of the New Zealand Symphony Orchestra shows looked amazing. And then, of course, those incredible headlining shows, particularly in Auckland at the Spark Arena, in front of 12,000 people, I believe. Were you ready for that? How do you prepare yourself for that kind of performance?
I don't know if I'm ever going to be ready for a performance. I feel like they always just freak me out. Like, but it's a good freak me out. It's like I think what's nice about doing your own shows is just knowing that people are there to support you, and that always like just slows everything down and makes you feel like, you can just go out there and just sing songs and, connect to the people and have a good time. But I mean, you can't really prepare yourself for like a crowd, because it's always like overwhelming and like crazy. But it's also like the nicest feeling in the world, especially like kind of being deprived of like, live concerts and whatever, like being able to perform and have people come and watch you, even if it's like 100 people. It's like, oh my gosh, okay, this is like, and it makes me realize like how much artists, like we do need live music. Like we have to like meet people, and we have to see the people who listen to our music, because streaming and online stuff is just not satisfying, because it just doesn't feel the same, it doesn't feel as connected. And that show was insane.
Yeah. Do you have people that you looked up to as role models in terms of live performance, people that you had seen in the past and I guess pointed the way for you to handle an arena crowd?
Ooh. I mean, I grew up watching a lot of people, like a lot of videos on YouTube of performances, but I don't know that there was like, I don't know, I feel like it's just every artist, when you look at them performing, it's just like, every artist. I feel like, you kind of watch them muck up, or you watch them, make a weird joke or something, and you're kind of like, okay, I get this. Like, I knew definitely what kind of a show I wanted to do, and I think that was just like going out there, just do your thing, be yourself. I was never going to go out there and like do some choreography. I mean, like maybe one day. Like, I'm not against the idea, but not currently there. But yeah, I mean, I think just keeping it really honest and relatable and raw, I think has always just been something that I think it just takes the pressure off, because you can kind of just go out there and just sing the songs, and I don't have things scripted. I know quite a few people do that. It's always a little bit awkward for me to see that. And I just feel like I would just muck that up. But it's always quite funny to see what I say out of being like nervous, because I mean, a lot of the time it's just really stupid stuff. But sometimes I'm like, oh, well, that came out, and that was like, okay, that wasn't the worst thing I could have said. But I've always like loved like Lily Allen and like Winehouse and stuff for just being super kind of like fuck it attitude and badass and raw. Yeah, I guess. So I think maybe if there were to be some artists in particular.
Sure. There's a relatability to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it true that the first band you ever saw was a band called Savage, like an 80s heavy metal band?
Oh, yeah, the rapper.
Oh,
No, that's a different one.
I
haven't
that was
heard about
strange.
that. Imagine. I mean, look, I'm all for heavy metal, but it wasn't the first. It wasn't the first band. No, Savage is a rapper from New Zealand. But no, yeah. I'm pretty sure he's actually from like the place that I grew up in, Auckland, Grey Lynn. But yeah, I saw him at like just like a very low key festival here, and I think that was something like growing up in Grey Lynn, which is quite a creative area. It was also very diverse. It's gentrified. It's gentrified now. It's a lot flashier than it was when we were growing up there. But yeah, I mean, I think just growing up around music and art and artists like Savage, who's just this like super cool rapper, and like Fat Freddy's Drop, Shay Fu. I mean, I think there are just so many crazy artists here.
Yeah. Especially
in like the hip hop scene, and that kind of like dub, like reggae that kind of scene. I think was always. We grew up around a lot of that.
Okay, so Greyland is it Greyland? Greylands?
Grey Lynn.
Lynn. So Greyland is a suburb of Auckland, where you grew up, and yes. I believe your parents were in creative pursuits. I think your mum was an actor and your dad was a video editor. So art was just part of everyday life for you growing up. Was that the case?
Yeah, for sure. And I think my parents were always kind of playing me music, and we were always kind of my brother and I, he's 3 years younger than me, but you know, they would always send us to like art classes or whatever that were around the place. Also, like all of their friends are creatives, so it was kind of like, you know, just a big pool of people making art and stuff, which was fun.
Yeah,
great childhood. Yeah.
Do you think you look back on that period as that helping to define your aesthetic and what you look for in the videos you make and even the costumes you wear live?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think definitely being encouraged to just like create and like, you know, wear what I want and whatever from a young age, I think has just made me want to do that now. And I think maybe if I had parents who were, I don't know, like accountants, no disrespect to accounting or whatever, but like, you know, if I had parents who were in a completely different lane who like, you know, art wasn't like a priority, I feel like maybe I would have been quite different like today.
Yeah.
I think I definitely can say that a lot of what my parents got me into when I was younger has definitely like shaped what I'm about now, which is nice.
Right. And what sort of music were they playing you around the house?
They would play me a lot of Radiohead. They played me a lot of B-52s, Björk, Beirut. They played me a lot of.
Right.
A lot of Winehouse as well. Love Winehouse. Never gets old. Who else? Groove Armada. But I mean, it goes on. I think, and they always like, they also like encouraged us to listen to whatever we wanted to listen to as well. So like, I mean, when I was younger, I'd pick like Now 35.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think also listening to quite an eclectic bunch of different artists that they loved, I think, you know, it made me go out and find like James Blake, which was like my first like proper find, who I was like, this is like gonna be my favorite artist for the rest of my life. Still is. So yeah.
Was it Overgrown? Was that the record that you bought?
Yes. Overgrown is just, oh my goodness. I just think like every song of his is just so like, it's just so good. And I went and watched him at the Hollywood Bowl, and it was just like the best show that I have ever watched in my life. And yeah, he's just a genius. I mean, I could do a whole podcast just like ranting on about him, but we won't talk too much about him.
Right.
I feel like one day he's going to figure out how like obsessed I am, and it's going to just be weird. So I've got to play it cool.
We have to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere because we'll be back shortly with more from BENEE. Welcome back to Humans of Music and my interview with BENEE. So when you pick up the saxophone at the age of 8, why the saxophone?
I wish that I had I wish that I knew why. I'm thinking maybe it was The Simpsons, like maybe it was Lisa Simpson, because she played the saxophone and I thought that she was really cool.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. I loved music, and I played the guitar a bit, and then like I found out about this instrument, the saxophone, and I was like, well, that's cool. And I just kind of, I guess I kind of had a bunch of like weird interests when I was younger, and it was kind of like can I do this? Like, I don't know, like, can I try this? And it was always like, sometimes it was like, you know, once it was like, can I ski? And Mum was like, we can't afford skiing. Like, there were some things where it was like, no, but I think with like music, it was always something that Mum and Dad like really wanted me to get into. So like, and even like my nana really wanted me to play the keys. I felt bad about not like pursuing that.
Okay.
But like she got me lessons for piano and but I think there was something really nice about like finding an instrument that I was interested in and then like doing it, you know, and it was like, yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier that you have dyslexia, and did music, I guess, was that an aid or a solace? I guess because school can be tough for children who have dyslexia.
Yeah, for sure.
Did music give you something that the cognitive things that perhaps some of English needed? Yeah,
for sure. I think it was fun to kind of, you know, do a lesson after school, and it was just a completely different feeling that you got from it. But at the same time, it was still like I still find it quite hard to like learn music and to like learn like languages. So I feel like, I don't know, there was still always like, it was still like a little bit hard, but I really enjoyed myself doing it. And I think like with something like the guitar, it's something that like more recently, you know, I can kind of reteach myself, and like, I don't know, it's just, it doesn't feel stressful, and it doesn't feel like I'm going to get it wrong, because it's like an instrument, you know, it's like, it's very different to a test.
Sure.
I don't know. Unless you're doing a music test, and that would be very stressful.
Right. So did you start because I know you mentioned that you wrote short stories. Did you at an early age start putting them to music as well? When did you even first starting writing even your own very basic songs?
Yeah. Well, I had my mum's old MacBook, which I had Garageband on. And I think like the first like song that I remember doing was when I was about 9 with my friend Grace at the time. And we had like written this love song on the trampoline and like recorded it. But yeah, I did play around with GarageBand quite a bit, like just looping things and like very basic. But, you know, then being able to kind of like figure out how to record a vocal, say, that was, and I wish that I could find the MacBook so that I could like see what these ideas were actually like. But I think just kind of, you know, having that software and being able to kind of just like play around with it was like really fun to me. And I'm no master at it now, but I know how to do like the basics. And I think it's just like such a fun tool, you know, that I feel like should be placed in front of more kids, like if it can be.
And you were quite young when you started messing around with GarageBand. Was it around 9 or 10?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. But I mean, it's pretty like GarageBand is pretty like user friendly, you know, it makes it quite easy. And now I'm using Logic now, but I mean, you can like click the thing that like has all of the instructions. So it was like a nice, like, you know, it's almost like a game. It was like there's like some other art thing, like I forgot what it's called, but there was like this like art app on the computer as well where you could like just like, I don't know, like stick stickers and stuff. I mean it was kind of like that to me. It was just, you know, fun.
Okay. So. And that progresses with you of recording covers and uploading them to SoundCloud. Was that the first step in terms of putting your music out there? Yeah.
Yes, it was.
How old are you at that point?
I was 17. Yeah, that was when I like sucked up the courage to like post. I had done like a lot of covers. I had always loved kind of singing over like instrumentals on YouTube and like recording it on photo booth or whatever. So I think like then getting to this point of my life, which was like finishing school, I was like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. Like, what on earth are we going to do with ourselves? We're 17. And yeah, I mean, I was kind of just like, you know, I'm just going to release this on SoundCloud because it seems to be this like kind of like mellow app where, you know, people are just kind of, everyone can kind of just release whatever they want. And so I was just like, well, I'm just going to do it.
Yeah. And then how did people discover it?
Well, I shared it on my Facebook. It was kind of like it was for my friends because a couple of them had been like, I think like one of my mates had like seen me perform at this, like I did one singing contest when I was little.
Okay.
at school, and they had, like, my friends, one of my closest friends, Savannah, was kind of like, oh my god, why don't you ever sing for me? And I was kind of always like a little bit awkward about it, and then just like finally released these covers, and everyone was like so nice about it, and I was like, oh my god, you guys are so kind. And then I actually got this message, like this DM from this like drummer dude who was like friends with this woman Trieste at Universal Music New Zealand, and anyways, that was kind of just there. And then also my producer found out about the covers, and my soon-to-be manager kind of reached out and said, like, do you want to come in to do a session? And I was like, what the heck? What on earth? And I mean, I had kind of like, growing up, Mum got me to do a bit of acting and like voiceover work. So when I got into the first session, I was obviously like, oh my god, this is kind of scary. But I was also kind of comfortable because it was like the studio setting that I had, I've been in something like this before, and I'm very different because you're writing your own lyrics and doing your own thing. But sure. It kind of felt like nice, I was kind of like, okay, like this is familiar. Now I just need to write a song, which was the next chapter.
Yeah, so that's what that all was leading to. They wanted you to come in and see if you could write originals.
Yep.
Okay, and then Tough Guy, is that the first one that you wrote with Josh?
Yeah, I wrote Tough Guy and Wishful Thinking in the same like weekend, because I was like obviously at school and it was like just trying to cram in a couple of sessions or whatever. But yeah, Tough Guy was the first one that I released.
Yeah, and so you mentioned that year 12, your final year of school, you didn't really know what to do, but music is bubbling away. At what point, because I know you went and did a communications degree or started doing a communications degree, was that a case of head over heart, that decision, before you decided to leave and pursue music?
Yeah, for sure. I think like just the pressure that you get like leaving school, and I just feel like I wish that I had kind of like listened to my mum, because my mum was like, just take a gap year, like travel, like take your time. And I was like, I liked school and I liked structure and I like going and learning, and I didn't like tests. Like tests always, no one likes tests, but yeah, I liked the idea of university, so I thought that was going to be like the right idea. And I don't really know what I was wanting to do, something in the creative world, so I was like communications degree, and I only lasted 2 weeks. And on the Friday of the second week, I was like, just got home, bawled my eyes out to my parents, and I was like, I don't want to do this, like I just want to do music. And it happened to be the last day that you could like pull out and still get the first year free. So right. I was like, this is ideal. But yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of people who kind of a lot of my mates who kind of got into uni and then, didn't really feel right about it. I don't know. I feel like it's this weird pressure to go straight into it and know exactly what you're wanting to do with your life, but it's a big thing.
Yeah. I kind of feel like, from what you've told me about your parents and your upbringing, when you came to them and said, I want to pursue music, there was probably part of them that was going, yes, finally.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't think that it was like, I don't think they really thought, or nor did I, that I'd be doing it full time now, but yeah, they were like, super encouraging. They were like, yeah, you're creating and you're loving it and you're singing. So
yeah,
I mean, they'd support me with whatever I wanted to do, but especially this.
Fast forward a couple of years and you do the Fire on Mars EP and the Stella and Steve EP, and of course Stella and Steve has Super Lonely on it, which goes on to become a giant hit, and I think at the moment has something like 4 billion streams. So it's done very well. How did it change your life?
It changed my life because, I mean, it opened, this door to this huge audience that hadn't previously known about my work. I signed a publishing deal, so I moved out of my parents' house, and I had this extra support. But I mean, I think, it kind of just like took my platform to this new level, like very quickly. So I think, I was like doing interviews every day for a long time, and it was just like this completely different feel that I was not at all used to. And I don't know, it felt very like sudden, like all of a sudden, and like it was crazy.
Yeah.
But it changed my life for sure.
Yeah.
In that way.
How did you deal with that though? Because, some of the issues that you've been talking about before, such as, I guess, not being able to stop your head from racing or certain ideas about anxiety, to be thrust into that world where everyone wants to talk to you and your music is doing really well. Was there an adjustment period?
It was weird because like I feel like it all happened when we were like in strict lockdown. So I kind of was like, I was feeling it online, but I wasn't really like it would have been very different if COVID wasn't happening and I was like out doing radio interviews in America and bouncing around. I don't know. I feel like it was kind of like, I don't know. I feel like a lot more could have happened if I had been able to go out or whatever. But at the same time, I feel like it was kind of maybe better for my mental health being able to just kind of do everything from home. Because I don't know, it didn't feel as real because it was kind of just, I was just just chilling in my room, like doing all these interviews with these crazy people who I had like, watched a lot of their interviews before on YouTube. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, just very weird, but could have been weirder, I think.
Yeah. And I imagine somewhat bittersweet, these opportunities to perform on Kimmel and Ellen's show, which you did, but having to do it remotely. On the one hand, it helped your mental health and obviously very secure just to stay in New Zealand. On the other, was there part of you going, I'm missing it. I want to do this. Yeah,
for sure. I think, and I mean, I think definitely in like the last year, I've like realized that I probably missed quite a, like, it was all there, and that was like, that would have been a perfect time to go out and like do all the promo and meet people and whatever, and then I couldn't. So it's just been like I've been in New Zealand for a long time, or it's felt like a very long time.
Yeah.
And I've just like watched a lot of people just kind of come and then just leave because it's like you can't connect and you can't, you can do a lot from home, but you can't do it all from home,
Which must make the idea of this upcoming tour incredibly exciting.
Oh yeah. I mean, I am so, honestly, I'm like this is going to be my year, I've decided, because last year was not my year. So I'm like, I mean, this is my year.
Nice. Was it true that Super Lonely only became a single because Elton John declared that it was going to be a smash?
I don't know. I mean, it probably helped. But but actually, I don't know if the label were going to make it the single. Like, I don't know if it was like originally the single, but it definitely like got my team like, okay, more pumped, I think. But who knows?
Yeah.
I can't even remember.
Right.
It's all a blur.
Did you meet him on his New Zealand tour?
I didn't meet him in New Zealand. I met him in Sydney and did his podcast.
Yeah. And what was that experience like?
It was insane. Like, very surreal. Literally flying to Sydney, or maybe it was Melbourne. No, I think it was Sydney, just to meet this icon and like talk to him. I was like so stressed. I was like, oh God. I just remember like sitting at this table waiting for him to come in with this other artist, Machu, from New Zealand. And I was just like, my hands were clammy. And I was like, do I hug him? Like, what's the vibe? And it just ended up being so nice. Like, went in for a hug. It was just very mellow. He was just the nicest guy. Don't meet your icons, but like meet Elton John because he's a G. So yeah, I mean, it was like, I was pleasantly surprised as well at like how much he knew about like emerging artists and stuff. Cause like we were also put on the show and then like we were meant to play a couple of songs from like other artists in New Zealand. And I had like picked this guy, Miroki, who I work with now, but, and Elton was like telling me stuff about him and like talking about his songs. And I was like, damn, you did your research. Like, this is awesome. So, I mean, it was so lovely to meet him. Such a nice guy.
Yeah. When you, I guess, come into his orbit and the orbit of people such as Grimes and Lily Allen for the Hey UX album, have you learned anything from working with these people? And I realize that's a really grand question, but were there experiences in terms of seeing how Grimes worked, for example, or Lily worked, for example, that just gave you a window into different creative processes that you learned from?
I wish that I could say that I saw how they worked, but honestly, it was sending files
Yeah.
online. Like,
Yeah.
I haven't actually seen how they work in person. This is another, like, I like that whole EP, except for my song with Muroki, they were all virtual. Like,
Yeah.
I haven't actually, I did like one call with Lily and Jenna, who I've worked with before, Jenna Andrews, because she was writing with Lily for her verse. And it's like, yeah, I didn't really see exactly how they worked, but they're pros, and that's like, it doesn't, you just know that.
Right.
And so I think, when I do get sent back their work, I'm here like fangirling, like, this is so cool that they're going to be on the song. But then they like send you this like verse, which is just bang on. I don't know. I think it's just exciting to like have collaborators in the first place, but then being able to kind of have these like crazy people send you this verse where they're just kind of, taking the song to this completely different place. I don't know.
Sure.
It was crazy.
Yeah. You mentioned Muroki, is that how you pronounce his name?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I know he's one of the artists on Olive, which is your record label.
Yeah.
What have you learned about running a record label? Like how hands-on are you with Olive, and what have you seen of that side of the industry?
Yeah. Well, I think I'm very much like the kind of A&R position role. I've always wanted to be an A&R, so I'm like, this is my job. But I think like what I'm doing mainly is kind of being like the first point of contact for the artist and making sure that everything that we're doing is super artist focused, and basically doing like everything that like I would want, or everything that like a major label does that I wouldn't if I could have everything my way, like, that I would change. So yeah, I think it's been interesting for sure. But it's been so nice, like just having full control, it's like I can make this exactly like my ideal label and just have fun with it and be there for the artist and make their experience super pleasant, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, the industry is also like so like random, but like also being able to kind of share what I know about it and how everything's gone for me, and then being able to kind of work really closely with these up and coming artists, I think has just been like, it's been the best, because I'm working with these people who I love, these creatives who I think are making really cool stuff, and then like being able to kind of support them in the best way and just take their music to the next level, just like shouting about them to everyone, and being able to share my platform as well, I think has also been, super helpful, because it's like, these people are listening to me, so I'm going to put these crazy artists in front of them and see what they think of them as well.
Yeah. Some of the advice that you've given them, you mentioned that, you've been able to talk to them just from your experiences and your learnings. Are there any sort of key pieces of advice that you think relate to the artists on your label that you've been able to impart?
Yeah. Well, one big thing for me is like learning to say no. And I think that that's something that like took me a little, it's a very simple, like, cheesy thing, but I think it's so important. And I think that that's, something that when we were kind of making, the contract or whatever you want to call it, I was kind of like, okay, like I want them to have the final say, because there are so many little things in record deals where it's like you can do what you want, and I have like pretty much like full creative control, but someone has the final say. So I think like what was really important for me was to just make it like we can negotiate, like that's part of it, but if they want to really do something, like we could say we don't like it, and they could say fuck you, we're gonna release it. So like having that conversation with them and just saying like, you don't have to do anything that you don't want to do, and just say no to whatever just say no to everyone, like learn to do that, and it will like get you in a much better place that you want to be. I think like in saying that, that's like from me having a couple of experiences where I've like, been like maybe, kind of pressured or like told that maybe I should do this and it will be a really good idea, and then having meetings and just feeling really like grossed out and stressed and like, I don't want to do this, and I don't ever want to have to like feel like this again, and I don't want to ever make another artist feel like that. I think, it's just sharing my experience with them and just kind of I don't know, I feel like it's just a really like comforting thing for them to kind of have this like very supportive, like, you know, I'm only here to like make them feel like they're doing what they want to be doing, and I don't know, whatever, all that stuff. But I mean, I think it's very easy for artists to be pushed around by labels, but I've been fortunate that hasn't been the case with mine. I've actually, like, they've got my ideas and they know exactly how I run. So I think, but just protecting them from that ever happening, I guess.
How have you been able to do that? How have you been able to get in that position where you have that control for your career?
That's an interesting question. I think it's like a lot of it is just to do with my stubbornness and like just the fact that from the start I've said I don't want to do anything that I don't want to do, and also like just having my meeting with them at the start. You know, I was very much like, this is what I'm about and this is what I'm wanting to do and this is how I run, and obviously my mum has also been like very close the whole way and like has always kind of said like, you're not going to be able to make her do something that she doesn't want to do, basically. So I think that, like, you know, my team gets it, and I think that that's a great help. And, you know, maybe there's literally been like one thing where like one of my songs, like they wanted to use it for a movie, and I was like, I want it to be in my EP. And it was like, I just had a really awkward like experience with it, but it ended up being fine because I was just like, I'm not doing it, you know, like, and I'm like, but yeah, I mean, I think that it definitely like took me a while to realize that you actually just have to be like boss ass, like you just have to be like loud and know what you want, and if something doesn't feel right in your gut, you've just got to like let people know about it, because otherwise it's just gonna, you know, it'll just keep happening, or you'll just get pushed around. But I mean, I've definitely like, I can understand how an artist could very easily, if they don't like know how to say no, and if they don't know what they're wanting, you know, it'd be very easy to be kind of pushed around, especially like young artists. And I guess you kind of see a lot of that happening. But like my team have been amazing, so I'm lucky. Nice. I think that's obviously not the case for every artist, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Last question. Jaxsta is all about giving credit where credit is due. Are there people you'd give credit to for helping you get where you are today?
Oh, for sure. I feel like there are hundreds of people, my whole team, and it like includes, you know, it includes everyone at my management, it includes my family, my friends, like spreading all of my music, other artists who talk about me or who share my music. I think radio, literally like everyone who I've ever done a shoot with, everyone who's ever done my makeup. I mean, you know, I'm really, and my producer, I think Josh, like obviously I have to be thankful for like a majority of my career, because, you know, he really helped me start it all off. But yeah, it's been awesome being able to work with everyone.
Nice. BENEE, thank you so much for your time. It's been great to chat with you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Cool beans. Likewise.
And that's it for another episode of Humans of Music. A big thanks to BENEE for her time, and thank you for listening. And just a reminder that BENEE's new EP, Lychee, is out now. If you have any feedback on the show or suggestions on who you'd like me to interview, or even if you just want to say hello, please drop me a line at humansofmusic@jaxsta.com. That's humansofmusic, one word, at Jaxsta, JAXSTA.com. This episode was mixed by Lachlan Mitchell from Parliament Studios in Annandale, and the incidental music and theme song were written and performed by Sam Lockwood. Please remember to subscribe to the Humans of Music podcast so you never miss an episode, or even better, share it amongst your friends and rate and review it. And remember, next time you need to know who wrote a song, who produced a song, who engineered it, who played on it, who sang on it, who did anything on it, head to jaxsta.com for all your official music credit information. Until the next episode of Humans of Music, I'm Rod Yates. Thanks for listening.